Okay, well, we're at 11:05, so we'll get started. I'm just gonna just make a few general announcements. But anyway, those of you who don't know me, my name's Erin Gross. I'm at Creighton University in the Chemistry and Biochemistry department. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm gonna moderate this discussion hour. I hopefully won't be talking too much, but just a few introductions. And this is put on by the ACS Division of Analytical Chemistry. Specifically, our group organizing this is the Education Committee. So I just wanted to initially acknowledge the chair of our Education Committee, Michelle Kovarik, who her face is right next to mine on the screen. And but anyway, she keeps us moving on things. We're all volunteers. And then the subcommittee that organized this, you've already seen a few of us talk. We've got Betty Galaretta from PUCP in Peru. And I should have said Michelle's at Trinity College. And Betty has helped organize a few of these and gets all the tech stuff, sends the emails. So I appreciate all of Betty's help. And then Nick Riley at University of Washington. So Nick is also a member of our subcommittee, helped organize this, and you'll hear a little bit from Nick, a little introduction into ChatGPT. And I see some other members of our larger committee, so please feel free to give a wave. I see Dan and Aaron. If I missed anybody, I apologize, but it's a great committee to be on. Lots of really nice, hardworking people. But anyway, that's we host these probably quarterly, Michelle, a couple times a year. So, come back for our next one once we advertise it. But anyway, that's the background on these. And so today, our brief outline, what we're going to do today we have our three panelists, and I'm going to let them each introduce themselves in a minute or two. Nick is going to give us an overview. If you signed up for this and you don't know at all what ChatGPT is, he'll give us a little background on that. And then each panelist has published in the area of ChatGPT and education. And so they'll give us a little background on their work. And then everybody that signed up for this submitted questions. So we picked a few questions from that, but we'll also let you guys ask questions today. You can type them into the chat and I can read them off. If you want to yell one out, that's fine too, either way. And hopefully we'll have a good discussion about ChatGPT in the chemistry classroom. And with that, I'll take it away. Let's see. André is kind of first on my screen, and I'll have André go first with his introduction. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So my name is André Pimentel. I am from the PUC Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. I am an associate professor in physical chemistry, and I am also the graduate program coordinator in my department.
Right. Thanks. Elisa, I see you next. Yeah. If you go, and then Suzanne.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elisa Fadda. I am from Maynooth University in Ireland, so just outside Dublin. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Chemistry, and I am a glycobiologist.
Hello, everyone. It's lovely to be here. My name is Suzanne Fergus. I'm based at the University of Hertfordshire in the UK, but you might pick up from my accent, I'm from the country that Elisa is in, so I'm actually Irish. I'm Associate Professor of Learning and Teaching. I'm also Associate Dean Education in the School of Life and Medical Sciences, where we're discussing at the moment all things AI, generative artificial intelligence, and what that means for our assessments, etc. So it's a very topical conversation that you're having in this hour. And my background's organic chemistry.
Right. Thank you. And Nick, are you ready?
Yes, I'll go ahead and share my screen here.
Awesome. Thank you. Nick's going to give us a little introduction.
All right, I just shared. Hopefully it's starting to load for everyone. Looks like it might be good now. All right, great. Well, these slides are actually from Elisa, so thank you. And I feel, somewhat like I'm definitely not the expert in the room when it comes to this discussion, but we just wanted to make sure that we gave a brief intro for people so we're all on the same page of what ChatGPT is. And I think first, what does GPT stand for? And, generative pre-trained transformer. And so that's a fancy name, but kind of what it's doing is it's using this thing called an LLM that feeds into some machine learning and a neural network. An LLM, didn't advance my slide, is this is referring to what ChatGPT is, and it's taking massive data sets of language and trying to figure out how it's parsed and how we can predict language should be put back together. So that's the entire goal of it. And it's using dialogue. And so with that dialogue, so you can kind of do here, the circle dialogue, and the way that it uses dialogue in kind of an interesting way is it does this, what we have highlighted on the screen here, reinforcement learning from human feedback, which means, we can think of reinforcement, how we think of it in like the classical sense of, benefit, rewards versus punishment. And you can have machine learning models that do that just with the algorithm itself. But now in this case, when we use these human feedback models, we actually have human intervention helping reward or punish the system so it learns kind of from us as we go. And so that's a big overview of what ChatGPT is. I like this slide that Lisa forwarded to me. So it's the dialogue part is both a feature and a bug of it. And so one part we know, this is an interesting feature of, the dialogue part is that no matter what, if you ask it a question, it will give you an answer unless it's trained not to. So there are definitely some questions it's trained to say, I can't answer that. But other than that, it'll give you an answer. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is kind of, we'll talk about that today. And then also, I like this point that Elisa is going to make, and I'm sure she'll talk about it, and all of us will talk about it today, but it's more weighted on what looks like should come next as far as what the language should be, and it's not necessarily what the right answer should be. And so it does not mean that it equals truth. And so we have this quote, if you guys know Neil Gaiman, the author, it doesn't give you information, it gives you information-shaped sentences, which I think is a really good way to describe it. And then finally, Noam Chomsky is also weighed in on this, but I think one thing we'll talk about today, one thing if you've used it, you've certainly noticed, is that it gives this false sense of authority with the way that it presents dialogue. And so it's really challenging oftentimes, especially for the non-expert, to know when it's right and when it's wrong. So that's what we want to talk about today is, if we're using this in the classroom, and certainly students have had access to it, how we can make use of it and not have it be a detriment. So with that, I'll stop sharing so we can get to the real conversation. I'll throw it back to you, Erin.
Okay, thanks. That was great, Nick. And thank you, Elisa, for the slides. And I guess maybe we'll go reverse order. Suzanne, would you want to go first this time? Then we can do Elisa,
Sure.
then André. All right, thank you.
Can you see my slides? Is that good? Yeah, thumbs up, great. So I've done my introduction, we'll move on, and Nick has greatly and very clearly introduced what ChatGPT is, so I'm not going to spend time on this, but just to say that there is a free version, which is the version that we were using in early January of 2023. So I learned about ChatGPT in December. It hadn't really hit the sector headlines in the way that it did in early 2023. And I started playing around with it just before the Christmas vacation and thought, oh, we need to look at this more closely. And so we started in January, and then it went viral. It felt like I was a news reporter because there were constant updates, and we actually had no access to ChatGPT for a week because there were millions of users who wanted access to it. So just to give that kind of overview, there is the free version. There is also a paid version, GPT-4. I haven't yet used it. I'm hoping to use it very shortly. So what I will be sharing is available via the free version, 3.5 as it is at the moment. I'm not going to get into about the prompts. Nick talked about that in terms of how the user, there is a human in the loop. And I think that's one of the real important aspects of ChatGPT. There needs to be that human in the loop that's able to make decisions on what information is generated via this technology. These were the questions that we had in terms of chemistry. So can ChatGPT generate answers to assessment questions? And this is what we published earlier this year. What's the quality of the questions? We didn't know any of the answers to these. So this is the research questions that informed our study. And we also were curious how similar were answers from different user accounts. We now understand from how this technology works, they are different. But at the time, we just were unsure and thought these are questions that we were interested as faculty members and educators. And we were also interested to understand about plagiarism matching software that we used at our institution, Turnitin. Would that even detect it? Where did we stand in terms of if various students were having to use ChatGPT in their work, could we even know that they were using it? I've highlighted just some of the findings. I can't go through the whole paper, obviously, in the time we have, but I wanted to just highlight some of the interesting findings that we found. So one of the questions, we used examination questions that were given to our students for online short answer questions in first year and in second year of the degree program for pharmaceutical chemistry. And so they were utilizing these questions that they could, in theory, Google an answer. So it was interesting just to note that for one of these questions, which was just a very, introductory, how many stereogenic carbons were present in a penicillin molecule that was given to the students, you would be able to find the answer on Google correctly, and yet ChatGPT did not give us the correct answer. For 3 user accounts, so there was myself and 2 other colleagues who investigated this using 3 separate ChatGPT accounts, and it gave a different answer in each case, and a wrong answer, an incorrect answer in each case. We also had a look to see, could it provide references? Because our students are asked to give academic references, and it did. And I think this is where we noted that there were errors. The references oftentimes didn't exist. I couldn't find one of these references. The other one, we didn't have access to it in our university library, so the students wouldn't have had access to it, but that doesn't mean that they may not have had access to it, but the second one didn't exist at all. So this, I think, has something that has been highlighted with ChatGPT, is that the references are not correct. I did just a little search yesterday. I just went back in to see what would it give, today for the same question. And I thought what was interesting at the bottom, it still didn't get the answer right, but it said, you can verify this information in various organic chemistry textbooks or online sources. So it wasn't even suggesting references at this case. So maybe that's a change that has happened, but I did notice that in my recent searches yesterday, that it wasn't providing academic references like it did for us when we did the study. We had this question in the second year, which was to do with molecular modeling and computational chemistry, which was for a drug molecule from 2021. And this was one of the limitations. It just so happened that our question had this timeline of 2021 in the question. But this is one of the limitations with the free version of ChatGPT. It has a cutoff of that year in terms of its knowledge base. So it wasn't able to answer that question. Again, I had the same result yesterday when I inputted that question into ChatGPT. So that still stands in terms of its limitation in terms of the year of 2021 for its knowledge cutoff. Some questions that we had, which were more discuss type questions, which were more knowledge-based questions. The thing that was very obvious is that the answers generated by ChatGPT are articulated very well. They have a good structure. So in some of these questions, the answers themselves were correct and were well written and well articulated and would achieve a high score when marked by academics. So in this case here, this one would have got, over 80%. So it isn't the case that all questions could be answered, but in some cases they could, and in other cases they weren't able to be answered. Other questions where there was a limitation with ChatGPT was with organic chemistry questions, where we had chemical structures. The ChatGPT could not answer those questions because the students were being asked to draw the structure, draw the mechanism, outline the mechanism, and that's not possible with this discussion-based technology and tool. I have noticed in some of the answers that we found, not the ones that I obtained, but my colleagues who were doing it 2 weeks later, and where there had been updates in, I guess, in the user input, there were some answers given. They weren't actually structures, but they were giving some with C's and H's. They were actually given line structures in text format. So that was interesting for us to note how things were evolving even in that short period of time. What we're looking at in terms of our assessment questions is developing that breadth of intellectual development across Bloom's taxonomy. So we're not just asking students to remember key information in chemistry at the bottom. We're also wanting them to demonstrate understanding, to apply their knowledge, to analyze, etc. So we had a look at our questions, and I'll just show you these tables, which are from the paper. And you'll notice that there was no trend in terms of saying, oh, all understanding questions can be answered or they can't be answered. It really depended on the specific context of the question. In some cases, there was an answer given, but it was incorrect, or it didn't address the question that was asked. It may have had irrelevant information included. In some of the answers, there was clear understanding evident, and there was high marks obtained for that specific question in the exam paper itself. So this was for year one. The same for year two. Year two, there were more questions that were analysis. They included chemical structures. The answers were not obtained using ChatGPT. So a summary of which for us we were interested in, the overall grade for our year one paper did not meet the pass criteria, and neither did our year two paper. So we felt reassured at this stage that at this time in the year, which was January, February, had students had access and would have had access to ChatGPT, they couldn't actually be able to answer a full paper without that human involvement, and not all of the questions could be answered. So that was reassuring for us. Some of the guidance that we've given for teachers is actually to try out ChatGPT with assessment questions. It's actually to input them and see what is the output from ChatGPT. Can it be easily answered? One thing that we're looking at this year is actually to have more discussions with our students to help them understand what is this tool, and to demonstrate and help them to be aware of it as well. We're going to talk to our students about that. But one of the things that's really important for us is we're going to include in each of our assessments whether or not it's permitted for students to use ChatGPT. We haven't banned it at the university. That is the general trend in the UK. It's not been banned, but it is not permitted for students to use. And if they do use it, they do have to reference it correctly. We are looking for some assessments where we may actually include ChatGPT and AI tools, where we're getting students to critically evaluate answers generated from the tool itself. I will stop sharing there. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't take too much time. I tried to speak fast. I can speak fast.
That was great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I see Elisa looks like she's ready.
Yeah, almost.
Okay.
I have to find the I have my presentation somewhere. Yeah, here. Share screen. There. Okay. Right. So that's great. So thank you, Suzanne, because you said so many things I was supposed to say. So that's great. It's going to be very short, and I'm glad that actually our both of our work are really that pretty much show the same results. So I used so in this example, I actually turned a fourth-year project into a ChatGPT project. So I actually used ChatGPT as a tool for Devon's fourth-year project, honors project. So we tested if ChatGPT could actually pass a glycobiology module, and in what way we could prevent students from using it. So in particular, it's like exactly what Suzanne said. How can I use ChatGPT as an educational tool? So that was pretty much as the platform that I chose for this project. So what we looked at is like, how does ChatGPT answer exam questions? That's exactly the same thing that Suzanne described very well. And longer essays. So can you write my abstract? Let's say you have to go to a conference, or you have to write out an abstract for your paper. Can ChatGPT write it? And what about a longer document? Some, especially in biology, it's very often you are assigned essays, and especially like in the biology department in my university, the staff is terrified about ChatGPT. So pretty much what we have learned is like, can we trust ChatGPT? And we learned some strategy for minimizing the use and misuse of ChatGPT, and how can we integrate ChatGPT in teaching and learning. So fundamentally, if I go to exactly the bottom of it, ChatGPT cannot be used for longer documents unless you're very skilled and you want to, write in pieces and put the pieces together in a cohesive way, which requires some creativity or some degree of knowledge of your subject. ChatGPT has a 500 words on written text limit, so it cannot really do anything longer than that with any actual ability or strategy. So what we have to all think and be convinced of, as Suzanne mentioned, like ChatGPT is a pathological liar. So what it does, it always answers the question. Is just like, it doesn't tell you, no, I cannot answer this question unless you write exactly what Suzanne said. Can you tell me something that is like after 2021? So it's taught not to answer that, or some particular question that he won't answer. So how do you feel, or other questions that is taught not to answer. But otherwise it will answer with an incredible degree of authority, which makes it makes you think that the answer is correct. So summary, like, we can trust ChatGPT? No. Can we minimize some misuse? Yes. And we have put some strategies in our paper that I'll give you the reference, but like in the next slide, and I gave you before. And can we integrate ChatGPT in teaching and learning? Well, we did that. So Devin was actually the assessor of all the answers that ChatGPT gave in this project, and she established if it was correct, it was incorrect, and she actually devised quite good strategies to make it fail. So I'll show you how it fails. So we tested ChatGPT, the normal free version, and it scored 70% in our 20 questions that are from an exam in carbohydrate chemistry. So that's extremely high. ChatGPT Plus, which is the paying version, scored 50%. Which actually got worse. So we didn't expect that, but we were kind of reassured about it. So these are, the bioRxiv is actually the free open access version of the same paper that appears in glycobiology. So ChatGPT can answer descriptive questions. If you ask it which of the following is like this, these were multiple choice question, and the ChatGPT free version actually gives you a little spiel of why it answers what it answers. So if you ask which of the following is a carbohydrate with 6 carbon atoms and a keto group as a functional group, it would just answers correctly. And also can be predictive in some sense. In this case, it just derives what, knowing what a homopolysaccharide is, it knows that heparin is a homopolysaccharide because it's not a homopolysaccharide because it's a heteropolysaccharide. So that's something that is simple for a human brain. Like for an artificial brain, it's quite difficult. So ChatGPT is not bad at all, but it cannot do any evaluations. So which of the following is a true statement about glucose? That throws ChatGPT in a loop because it doesn't know what's true or false. It cannot make an assessment of what is true and what is false. So if you ask, for example, it's a similar question that Suzanne asked about stereochemistry. So ChatGPT cannot really do stereochemistry fundamentally. But in this case, it definitely doesn't know what is going on. So, and because you're asking it to make a judgment of true or false of the answer that is about to give you. I know it's a lot of words, but it's just like, if you ask this question in a different way, it might be able to give you an answer. Although this is stereochemistry, so it's not really good at it. It can also cannot give you any questions, any answers about the required prior knowledge. One of the things is just like something that you do in class. ChatGPT doesn't know what you've done in class. So if you ask a question, is like, you know, as we discussed in class, cannot answer that, obviously. So the example, this is again like, you know, the question about fructose. So I can answer in sorry, I cannot see what I am because there's the box. So anything that any question that is phrased in a way that requires an evaluation or thinking throws ChatGPT into chaos. So you can use your same questions in your exam, but rephrase it in this way. And that might help in order to avoid make students avoid using ChatGPT. So if it's in a chaos, like, you know, the students might recognize that, because as Suzanne said, it just always keeps on answering inconsistent, gives you inconsistent answers. So it just always answers a different answer. So that the students actually, when they are shown that, they are really it's an evident proof of the incompetence of this tool for them. So, and this is what Nick used, like, so, like, I'm not gonna show it you again, but so, like, if you want to know about more about, like, kind of a practical example, like in particular in life science or in basic chemistry, I'll point you again to the papers here. Like the bioarchive, as I said, is a free, is the open access version if you want to give it a go. So I hope that's useful to you and to your work in class. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. That was just great. And while Andre's getting set up, I'll mention that in your confirmation email, we sent a link to various resources, and each of our panelists, we've linked to each of their publications as well. So hopefully they're easy for everybody to find. All right, I'll let you take it away, André.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I am a physical chemist, so I am trying to explain a couple of things with ChatGPT that is very different from my previous, from Suzanne and Elisa. So I try to understand if the chemical representations, the equations, the numbers are doing correctly in the ChatGPT. So I published this paper in March, in the very beginning, and I am going to show some results from this paper. You can read the paper. So about chemical representations. Chemical representation is very difficult for ChatGPT. In the very beginning, March, the ChatGPT hit about 27% of the nomenclature and the smiles related to the nomenclature. And about 4 months later, in July 14, I repeated the same questions, and the ChatGPT, and also I tried using Bard from Google, and almost nailed almost 100% of the same questions. So I got very excited about this because it's a very difficult question for ChatGPT, and I tried to do the same for the following questions that was published in March 23. For example, hydrophobicity. So I tried to see if the ChatGPT can get the right numbers from the partition coefficients of some compounds. It's not simple compounds, compounds constituents from essential oils. So the structure is very difficult it's not very simple. And in the March, ChatGPT hits 31%. And again, repeat the same questions in 4 months later, and the both Bard and ChatGPT reduce the error a lot, but the explanation is wrong. But if you ask about for example, the partition coefficient of linalool is 2.97, and linalool is the explanation is 297 times more soluble in octanol than in water. So it's very wrong. No, I mean, this is kind of very strange, because it's not correct. And for example, coordination compounds. I try to see if the ChatGPT understands the chemical representation, and the ChatGPT found 58% of the questions, and about 4 months later, both Bard and ChatGPT almost did all questions very correct, answered all questions correctly. Also about geometry and symmetry, the hit rate for the ChatGPT is about 60% in March, and 4 months later, both Bard and ChatGPT nearly almost answer almost correctly everything. So at this point, we can show the ChatGPT learned in 4 months a lot of questions that was impossible to understand completely in March, And I put this figure just to see if you are afraid about the ChatGPT. And my answer is no, because as you can see, there are a lot of problems with the ChatGPT, and ChatGPT doesn't think. The reasoning is very, very difficult for him, and if you try to use, for example, problems with math, in physical chemistry, differential equations, differential calculus, integral calculus, if you see, I try to do the same questions for example, to calculate the density, it fails, and it's a very simple question, calculation of expansion coefficient of ideal gas, it made correctly, and this question is important because it uses differential calculus, calculation of reversible work for a two-step process. It answers correctly, and calculation of chemical kinetic equations almost correctly. The incorrect sentence was like a very subtle error. And for example, the most difficult question for me was like quantum mechanics calculations of a particle in a one-dimensional box. For me, I got very surprised because the ChatGPT answered almost correctly, almost. So, but critical thinking and reasoning is a very difficult thing for ChatGPT. So, in my conclusion, about 4 months later, in July 14, both Bard and ChatGPT nailed almost 100% of the same questions that was asked previously. But the explanation, when you try to explain the answer, some explanations are still wrong. But it's all right, I think, because the educator can stop the students and try to explain why it's wrong and explain why it's correct, stuff like that. But ChatGPT got almost correct all the questions with critical thinking and reasoning on problems-based questions on physical chemistry. Bard failed badly in these questions, but I got very surprised the difference between Bard and ChatGPT from OpenAI. So thank you very much.
Thank you, André. That was also very informative and interesting, just like the other presentations. At this point, I'd like to invite people to type in questions, ask questions, and while you think about your questions and type those in, we have a few that we pulled from those submitted that we thought we'd cover. We have about 20 minutes left of our discussion hour, so I'll ask you guys. What are common misconceptions about ChatGPT? And I'll let any of you three, we can hear from each of you.
I'll just start off if that's okay. So I think one of the common misconceptions from faculty is that ChatGPT, the assessments are doomed. There was this fear and doom about ChatGPT, and hopefully that reassurance from the presentations today shows it isn't the kind of the magic bullet when it comes to assessment. So it's a catalyst for us thinking about what we are assessing in our assessments, for sure. It's a bit like COVID, it's a disruptor. It gets us to really critically think about what we're doing, but it's not this doomed kind of that everything has to change. I think we just need to be more aware of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and having good open conversations with faculty and then with our students.
Thank you. André, Elisa, anything to add?
It's so Suzanne said it perfectly. So it is a disruptor and probably is an opportunity to actually look at what we're really doing, what we are assessing, like if it's really something to regurgitate answers, or it's actually promotes critical thinking, because ChatGPT is amazing at regurgitating answers, especially if those answers are to very simple questions that ChatGPT has been trained over and over again to repeat. So what ChatGPT cannot do is actually do any critical analysis or actually reflection on the actual material that is regurgitated. So, and to banning it or saying to students don't use it is actually completely counterproductive, because they will use it. It's actually, because of its answering tool, it's very easy. They don't even have to search Control-C, Control F find on a Wikipedia page. They can ask it. So the point is, the minute you the students realize that ChatGPT is not trustworthy, they're not going to use it because it will require so much work to assess if the answer is correct. They might just go to the Wikipedia page. So it's just something that, providing some answer, or actually using it in class as a tool and say, give it a go, look it up on ChatGPT and see what ChatGPT gives you as an answer, might be something that, first of all, is interactive. So it breaks the monotony of class sometimes, but also it's a very productive way of making students reflect on what this tool is nowadays and what it can do for them or against them. So that's my opinion.
I think the ChatGPT must be used as a first step, in everything. You must ask something, and you must ask it correctly, because if you give some contextualized information before making the question, the ChatGPT does much better if you just ask something very simple, you know. And also, both educators and teachers, educators and students must stop copy and paste, because we need to read the answer, analyze the answer, and ask again if it's correct. Try to point out the where is the problem, to see if the ChatGPT understands the own error, you know, the own mistake. These are two. But for sure, if you, I think in 4 months, I also learned about the ChatGPT, and now I can make better questions that get better answers, you know. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I've noticed that too as well. And I'm going to read, I see Dan entered a question in. Thanks, Dan. And it's along the same lines as the next one we had planned. So I'm going to go ahead and just read Dan's off, which Suzanne already replied to. Thank you. The ability to identify when something is wrong is a skill that us faculty have practiced quite a lot. I could see having students grade ChatGPT's answers as a good exercise. Have any of you panelists had students compare answers with ChatGPT in real classes? What are student thoughts?
Well, like in my case, this is the old paper, like, so it's pretty much like the old paper is a flipped class experiment. So Devin, who was the student, was the assessor. So she actually learned more glycobiology than I've ever had any student in my group learning. Like, she was really comfortable in the end with assessing, like, and asking ChatGPT questions. Like, so she was I honestly, like, to me, it was a surprise. Like, she really liked it. She was interested in it. She enrolled her mother, all her friends, like, you know, to get ChatGPT accounts so they could get unbiased answers. So, like, I didn't tell her to do that. I was sitting back and seeing what, you know, pretty much directing what she was doing. But in the end, like, she was like completely owning the project. So that was an extremely you know, that's a great surprise. Obviously, like, you know, some students might not be so interested in the computational side of things. Like Devin was double honors in chemistry and statistics. So she liked kind of like the computing side of it and the AI part of it. So you might get some other student that is not so keen, but still, like, you know, you can use it that way. And, you know, like it is a successful way of using ChatGPT for teaching and learning. She says she will never use it again, but, you know, that's probably because we worked very hard on it, and she realized that it wasn't really nearly as good as she thought it was going to be. Like, she actually thought it was much better than it actually is for this project. But you know, it depends on what you use it for. Like, so computer science is probably the field where ChatGPT is the most threatening, because it can write code quite well in different languages, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But you know, it depends how you use it. But there's no computer scientist in this audience, so probably is a bit outside of the topic.
That's good. That's good to know, though. And I've talked to students who have used it for that purpose. But either of other panelists, that specific assignment, or have you given other assignments that that maybe you didn't talk about, or if you want to remind us of any assignment you've had students do with ChatGPT?
Not yet. It's going to happen. We've just started our academic year, so that's in the pipeline. But it's a real, I think, useful reminder to say it's that human in the loop. ChatGPT is a tool. there needs to be that human in the loop. I think André and Elisa have really emphasized that, the evaluation of answers, the refining of prompts, the questioning of the information that's generated. It's that human in the loop that's essential, and that's really the critical part of this. So yes, it's, you know, I put in a bit of a sort of a comment there around, well, maybe, you know, it's a skill for the future, that, you know, this prompt writing for students, it's actually how to ask really good questions and how to refine the prompts. Maybe that is something that we will be looking at. Has our graduate, you know, skills, is it changing, you know, with these new technologies? And maybe that is something for us to look at in our curriculum development. But it is about that human in the loop as well with ChatGPT. And I think definitely having students, you know, evaluate answers and be able to have that conversation, that they can access what we are looking for in our assessments. What's the outcomes? How do we grade? What's the language that we use in our grading and our criteria? All of that is really valuable as a resource to help foster those conversations with students.
Well, in my university, the administration asked for educators not use the ChatGPT in class before we evaluate and learn about the tool. So in this year, I mean, in Brazil, we start in March and end in December, you know. So we are in the middle of the second half and of the academic year, and we are trying we are preparing workshops for both professors and students to educate them how to use in a better way, you know, before decide to use this in the next year. So that's why we don't use the ChatGPT in our classroom.
Right. Thank you. And I've got, if there are any more questions, please type in a question if you have one. Otherwise, I've got some of the questions that were submitted before this that I'll ask. And I think we've kind of touched on this, but you can maybe expand. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, at what point does it minimize the professor-student interaction? Is even a little bit already too much?
Sorry, like, are you looking for somebody to answer this?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. I guess they're wondering about, you know, have you found ChatGPT to minimize the student-professor interaction, or how to prevent?
Quite the opposite. Like, so it's just like, you know, like it's a tool, like it's something that it can actually foster interaction. I think, at least in my experience, like it stimulates discussion, and it just like it prompts, probably depending on how you use it, the student to actually look into resources, and in order to find the resources, it needs to ask you, like, or where do I find these resources? Because as Suzanne mentioned, ChatGPT is completely unable to give you references. So the point is, like, we tried with Devon very, very hard to make ChatGPT give you proper references. So the only way that they can give you references that are almost accurate, and that was like, you know, like it always has to write in something that is completely bonkers. Like, so that's how I recognize ChatGPT as like useless, like information that is completely fabricated. Like, it's the only way for it to give you a correct answer is to give you, like, if you give it the reference. So we mentioned, like, we were actually giving references, like, can you actually put this reference into a text, into your text? And he would make some mistakes within that, like, you know, like you give it to it. Otherwise it just completely fabricates the answer. The point is, like, it's actually very subtle how it does fabricate the answer. In some cases, we found that it actually selects some authors that are plausibly involved, that could be plausibly involved in that work. So it's actually very, very subtle. Like, so if you're a distracted reader and you see, like, you know, some very famous researcher working or cited within a particular context, then you would not, you wouldn't be surprised that you think that that reference is correct. However, the journal is wrong. Usually the year is wrong. It's fabricated. It's just like, it is like in a preface, like we discussed, the ChatGPT, it's actually pretty much works in a way that it puts words one after the other based on the probability that that word or that name or that particular phrase would just be constructed in terms of what is the highest probability, which doesn't mean that it's true or false. So references are completely something that is out of the scope of an LLM. They're getting better at it, but it's still not, doesn't see a reference as a whole thing, that it should go as a block inside. It's still weighted by probability. So obviously that doesn't work. Sorry, that's it.
All right, thank you. And any other, I know we're going to get wrapped up and people are starting to.
I'll just, Erin,
yeah,
if
go
I
ahead,
could just
Suzanne.
briefly, I'll just say, when you asked that question and I thought about it, no, it hasn't. It hasn't affected student-professor interactions. And it reminded me of when I started my academic career, where YouTube, and there were videos, and I guess there might have been a bit of a fear of, we're just going to be replaced by, you know, students can actually go online and watch videos. They don't need to attend class. And that didn't happen. There's always, some sense of, oh, what could this mean? But I really am not, fearful that it's going to replace. I think it's us being, like André has said, understanding the tool, the limitations, the functionality, and then making our informed choices as to how we engage with it or not, for our students.
Thank you. That's a great analogy. I appreciate that. And I guess André, anything to add before we wrap up?
I just want to add something to Elisa about references. I think the Bard, the Google's Bard, is better. It's not perfect, but it's better because it gets from Google Academics. There are a lot of information there. If they use the Google Academics papers there, it cites perfectly. But the citation is not perfect, but it's better, you know, just because it's there.
So, I know that's interesting. But in Europe, we cannot use BARD because it goes against GDPR. So we just actually cannot access it. So that's another thing, the GDPR issues.
Yes.
So it's but Google Scholar is indexed under also under ChatGPT, so it should know it. It doesn't know what a reference is.
Yeah.
It's not told what a reference is. So that's a whole architecture problem that they can fix, but they haven't yet. So it's
Elisa, did you notice what I found yesterday? How it didn't give a reference. Maybe
that's
like why.
They don't know, like,
for me.
references, like, so, but if you give it, it always like writes something that is completely bonkers into it. It makes you know that is ChatGPT. So like, you know, if a student puts it out, but we actually ended up having to give it the answer. It's like, can you just like repeat this answer to me? No, like it's not good enough. So, but it's good for other things. It's very good for other things. So I'm actually very interested in what it can do. But as I agree with you, that honestly, like when Wikipedia came out and it said like, oh my God, don't use Wikipedia. The students are gonna use Wikipedia. Actually, Wikipedia, it was much more dangerous well, everybody ends up using Wikipedia, so which is me included. I use Wikipedia all the time. So it's actually like there's nothing to fear really, like, you know, from ChatGPT, from Wikipedia, from any tool really. If you use it wisely, like that's it.
All right, well, thank you very much. We're at our hour, so that was, I learned so much in this hour. Thank you, panelists. Thank you so much, and thanks Michelle and Nick and Betty for your help organizing this. And I wish everybody a happy weekend. It's already Friday night in Ireland and the UK, so some of us still have half our day. But anyway, thank you everyone who attended, and hopefully to see you guys again sometime, either virtual or in person. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
again.
much